Hello, Tommy. Nice to be with you today. Thank you for sitting down with me and the business of fashion. I wanted to spend some time talking about your career. It's been 30 years now since you launched your business. So let's go back to Elmira, New York, where you grew up and where you set up your first fashion business. I was curious to hear about kind of what motivated a young man living in a small upstate New York town. What motivated you to think that fashion, or starting a fashion business, even back then, was the right path for you?
I think it was by mistake, in a way.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea that I would ever go into the fashion business.
Yeah.
I was too small to play on the basketball team at school, too small and frail to play on the football team. And in the mid to late 60s, I became obsessed with music.
Yeah.
The Beatles came to America, the Rolling Stones, the Who, Led Zeppelin, Hendrix, and all of the sort of supergroups of the time were very influential. There was a fashion music revolution taking place with Woodstock, and I wanted to be very much a part of that scene. So because I couldn't really play an instrument, I decided to look like a rock star.
Right.
And I had long hair and wore cool clothes, and most of the students at my school were dressing in preppy clothes and very normal sort of classics. But they all wanted to look like me, because it was like, sort of a rebellion against parents, because the parents hated long hair. They hated seeing like mod hippie type clothing on their children. And at that time, I decided to take $150 I had saved from working nights in a gas station, buy 20 pairs of jeans from the streets of New York City, bell-bottom jeans, and sell them to my friends.
Okay.
So I opened a shop called People's Place.
Okay.
Painted it black and played music, burned incense and candles, and sold really cool clothes.
But this is like way before the internet and way before kind of mass media. I mean, how did you, because I've never been to Elmira, obviously, but like how did you kind of figure out what was cool and like translate that into this retail store?
It was all about what the musicians were wearing.
Okay.
That was cool. I mean, seeing Jimi Hendrix and seeing the Stones and the Beatles and the Who and all of these groups dress in such incredible ways, I really wanted to be part of that whole world. So I wanted to feature that type of clothing in my stores.
Yeah.
So I searched New York City for the type of clothing I needed to put in my stores. Mm-hmm. And I would go to like obscure boutiques on the Lower East Side, and before Soho was Soho, and the East Village, and I would find really cool items, sometimes vintage items, and bring them back up to Elmira, New York, which is a college town.
Okay.
And I sold them to like cool young people.
Right.
But along the way, I was thinking, wait, I think if I were to add a pocket or embellish these jeans or change the design, I would have a better product.
Okay.
So I started designing on my own.
Right.
And having these items made for my store, and then stores subsequently. People loved what I was doing, and while I was doing that, it was so much fun. I thought, well, designing clothes is something that I never thought of.
You weren't trained as a fashion
No,
designer?
no, not at all.
So how did you teach yourself basically how to design and kind of put together a garment? And there's a lot of technical, skill that goes into designing.
I knew coming up with the ideas that was inspiring, it was interesting, and so I hired local people to work for me, and I guided them. And as I was doing that, I was thinking I should build my own brand. And it was my dream at that time in the 70s to build my own brand, but I didn't really know exactly how to do it. And at one point in time I said, I'm just doing it. So I moved to New York City, I sold my stores.
But wait, before you get into that, there was the stores grew very quickly.
They grew very quickly. I opened jean boutiques on college campuses throughout New York State.
Right.
On the Cornell campus, Cortland, Auburn, Corning, New York, Lake George, New York. We opened a lot of stores.
Right.
I had a couple of high school friends who were partners. And we overexpanded. And we had a bankruptcy, which was like a master's degree in business for me, because I realized we knew nothing about business. And at that point in time, I figured that in order to build a brand and to become successful, you really should understand business.
Right.
So I taught myself business. And I toiled over reading a balance sheet and looking at the bank statements and really doing primitive math, trying to figure out how to become profitable. And I figured out that you have to sell more than you're spending, and it was quite simple at the end. But it was difficult for me to grasp this idea of having to be a designer and a businessman.
Right.
But I had no choice.
Right.
So I forced myself into it.
Well, it was a pleasure
Thank
hearing
you.
your story and learning from your twists and turns.
Thank you very
and
much.
And congratulations on your 30th anniversary.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.